What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. As a reminder, as I talked about yesterday, there won't be a Newswave tomorrow morning. It's Christmas, so we're going to spend the day with friends and family, but we'll be back Thursday morning with a new episode of Newswave, and hopefully have a good holiday overall, have some fun, see the family, friends, eat some good food, and we'll see you back here on Thursday. As for today, though, we have some stuff to go over, which includes an advancement that could help the Switch with one of its biggest weaknesses right now, which are the size and cost of the cartridges that the games come on. So we're going to talk a bit about that and what that could mean for Nintendo going into 2020, 2021. Some interesting stuff there. And then, of course, Fallout 76. I mean, it's just kind of sad at this point, but the forum, the subreddit just went absolutely nuts over hackers actually now stealing from other people who are legitimately playing this game, currently stealing stuff out of their inventory. And then a bit more backstory around Phil Spencer when he took over with Xbox and him pushing Microsoft to go all in with gaming. So a bunch of stuff to go over today, guys. As always, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit the like button. It does help out. You guys have been helping out quite a bit by liking the videos, and that is doing whatever it does to the YouTube algorithm. I don't think anyone actually understands that thing, but you guys liking the videos as much as you have has been helping quite a bit. And if you're new here, make sure you're subscribed down below so you can stay up to date on all the gaming news going on in the gaming world. We're going to start today with Hellblade 2 because when they did show it off, there was a question around, will this be making its way to PC as well? Because you showed it off with the Series X. You said it's going to take full advantage of the Series X, and with some of that trailer that we saw that's in-engine, I mean, we'll see how that actually looks in-game when it ships on the system. But does that mean that it's also going to be developed for Xbox and PC? So both of them? Well, Aaron Greenberg took to Twitter, as you're seeing here, saying it's being made exclusively for Xbox and PC. Not surprising, considering Microsoft's past and how they are treating a lot of their games now, where they are moving stuff to PC pretty much day and date with their console now with the Xbox. So I assume they were going to continue that trend on, especially now that they're trying to push Game Pass as much as they are. But that will also set us up for some pretty good comparisons between the Series X and the latest video card and gaming rig that you can get on the PC, especially when you compare pricing. So things could get pretty fun there, and we'll see how that all goes down in 2020, late 2020, maybe 2021. Hard to say when Hellblade 2 is coming out, but it looks good so far. So hopefully it's a launch title. We'll see. Also, we know Telltale is kind of back, sort of. I mean, we saw the new Wolf Among Us game that's coming out. But one thing I was wondering about with the new Telltale Studio games, are they going to still do them episodic? Like, are the games going to come out in pieces like they had been before? Well, in an interview, the CEO from the new Telltale games, I guess, talked with GameDaily.biz, and this is what they had to say about that. We are creating the stories episodically, but how they will be released is still to be determined. I think the important distinction here is that we will no longer be developing episodically. If we do release the game in episodes, all of them will be ready before the first one hits the store. So good news there. We don't have to buy it and then, of course, wait for each piece to come out. I think at one point, for Walking Dead, there was concerns that part of the story would just not come out because they developed it basically in pieces. If it's episodic, that's fine, but I think it'd be better if everything released all at once. Kind of like how Netflix will, do an entire season and just drop it all at once. Yes, there are technically episodes, but it's all there at the same time. I know Disney Plus has done something a bit different with The Mandalorian, as they have actually released that every week. I think I prefer it the other way, where you just get everything at once and you just watch it at your leisure, or just a lot of people will just binge watch the whole thing. But for something like Telltale, where it's a video game, I'd prefer to get everything all at once, play it all in one sitting. Otherwise, maybe you'll forget about what happened before and they got to remind you and you got to go back through that anyway. That is something I think that may have actually affected Telltale. So I like the idea that they just release everything in one shot. At least that seems to be their plan going forward. Also, it looks like Kojima is indeed working on the next game or the next movie. He's starting to make this a bit more public. Remember, he talked about renting like horror games while he tries to think of the next game? Well, he posted this on Twitter showing his computer all set up with, I guess, Word or Notepad or WordPad or something, saying working on the next concept while no one is in the office. I guess just trying to think of what the next thing is going to be or the idea that he has going forward. And he says concept. Technically, that could be movie or a game. That's what I'm trying to figure out now. I assume he's making another game. But what if he's actually working on a movie as well, and maybe that's what this is pointing to? A lot of questions there. That is the question I have for you guys, though. Do you think Kojima's going to do a movie next, or do you think he's going to do a game next? Let me know. And guys, some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start with the Switch cartridge, Macronix, and the possibility of a 64 gigabyte cartridge being on the way. This could be big time for Nintendo if they can get this right, and they have been named as apparently the first customer for this, which probably is the driving force for Macronix even doing this. Now, Macronix is the company that produces the chips inside of the game cartridges. We've opened the cartridges here before on this channel a couple of times now, and we've found Macronix inside a couple of times. So yes, I have seen Nintendo use other companies. I think SanDisk has made a few as well, if I'm not mistaken, but Macronix is like their main supplier for these chips that go on the little boards that sit inside your game cartridges. And we've heard all about game cartridges being a bit too expensive for publishers to work with. That's why we get games that are like, oh, there's a gigabyte on the cartridge, and then you got to go download like 20 gigabytes. Now, I'm looking at 2K for that one, obviously, with NBA, where you download an immense amount of data. But we've also seen some companies like CD Projekt Red jam everything they can onto a 32 gigabyte cartridge with The Witcher 3. So I think it really depends on the deal that can be worked out with Nintendo and how willing the publisher is to kind of work through that, or if they're like, just make them download everything. We're not paying that extra money for a 16 gigabyte cartridge. But it looks like Macronix has figured it out. I say figured it out because in 2018, there were some rumors going around that they had to delay it because there was a technical issue with the 64 gigabyte cartridges. Now, at this time, AnandTech is reporting that Macronix will manufacture 48-layer 3D NAND memory in the second half of 2020. And this is from the chairman of the company, Min Woo. And during the press conference, which was dedicated to the 30th anniversary, they also laid out plans to continue larger and larger NANDs with a 96-layer 3D NAND and a 192-layer 3D NAND going from 2021 and 2022. So they've kind of set up a nice little roadmap here going forward, and they specifically seem to name Nintendo as their first customer, which is pretty big because that means that Nintendo possibly could be looking at this for some game maybe going forward, because I can tell you now, the biggest thing that holds up developers and publishers, because there have been a few games, I think some have even maybe been rumored already, but there are some games that were supposed to go to the Switch and they've been held up by publishers because of the game cartridge costs. I can tell you that is an actual thing, not because of the power of the system. And I think things like The Witcher 3 kind of made people step back a little bit and maybe realize this somewhat. Not necessarily the power of the system holding some of these games back, it's the cartridge costs. That is a legitimate issue right now that Nintendo has been trying to work through, and they almost had it seemed, in 2018, but they had technical issues. And the reason I'm saying that is because as these technologies advance forward, and it seems like Macronix has a reason, by the way, to continue forward with this. Outside of just Nintendo, they do some other things as well. Those chips are used in some places, but it's very, very specialized. I think there's like hospital equipment and other things that it's used in, but game cartridges is named in the list of stuff that they provide these chips for. So Nintendo wanting a 64 gigabyte cartridge, wanting the other ones to get cheaper, is a legitimate reason for Macronix to push forward. So now the question becomes, is Nintendo lining this up for the current Switch? Like, will 64 gigabyte cartridges like pop up and be used immediately on the Switch? I'm kind of thinking no, not necessarily, because 32 gigabyte cartridges have actually been available for a while now. If you remember, when the Switch launched, Dragon Quest Heroes 1 and 2 shipped in Japan on a 32 gigabyte cartridge, and that was a while ago. That's 2017. But it really hadn't been used much since. I think Final Fantasy X-2 was on like a single cartridge in Asia, and now, finally, in 2019, it was used on The Witcher 3. So it's not like that's been getting thrown around. Now you step up to a 64 gigabyte cartridge, which is going to be even more expensive. I feel like this could be something that might be used down the road. It could be something used in like 2022, for example, 2021. Maybe this is something Nintendo is getting lined up even for the next generation Switch years from now, or maybe they're working to get just the 32 gigabyte cartridge cheaper, because I do think if that was cheaper, that could be big for Nintendo to get some of those previously mentioned games on the Switch. Seriously, if some games were able to use that 32 gigabyte cartridge and it wasn't costing them an arm and a leg, I think they would be on the Switch right now. But we'll see, because maybe we will find out that a game is shipping next year or early 2021 on a 64 gigabyte cartridge. And that could open up a whole world of possibilities for Nintendo. That would be one of the biggest weak links that they could eliminate for the Switch. But it's good to hear that Macronix seemed to have figured out whatever the issue was in 2018, now going into 2020 with some much larger Switch cartridges. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft, Xbox, and Phil Spencer, and I guess Satya Nadella as well, as there was a time, of course, where Microsoft wasn't sure about the Xbox. I've talked about this before, specifically when the Xbox One launched and the 360 was winding down. That Xbox One launch was not good. It was very, very bad. We've talked about this several times now. It really hurt Microsoft and the Xbox brand. And of course, Don Matrick was out. Here comes Phil Spencer, who got promoted within the company to take over. And apparently, Phil Spencer had an interview with GameSpot where he talked about all this. Now, keep in mind, this is from Phil's point of view, so I'm sure maybe some things aren't 100%, but he does mention that Nadella actually called him up and said, look, I'm not sure if Microsoft should be doing gaming like it is now. I don't know if we should have a dedicated console, basically. And Phil Spencer somehow managed to convince them to buy Minecraft. That is where I have a hard time with that one. They were just saying, I don't know about this. And apparently Phil said, hey, we got to go all in. We got to spend $2.5 billion on Minecraft. And they did, so he must have done a very good job convincing them to do that. And I mean, if you look at it now, Microsoft is in a much better position than they were when the Xbox One launched. They're making more money. They're making quite a bit more money on gaming now. And they have expanded into the services category with Game Pass, which, according to Phil Spencer, has been doing well for them and making them money. And then apparently when they bought Minecraft, PlayStation called him and said, are you guys taking Minecraft off of PlayStation now? Like, they seemed kind of concerned about that. And Phil Spencer said, no, people are playing it on PlayStation. Why would we do that? This is an interesting response. It's kind of funny to hear that Sony called them and said, well, hold on, people actually play that on the system. Can we figure this out? Apparently they did. I mean, now you can sign into Xbox Live on the PlayStation through Minecraft. So times are changing, especially if you read that interview, which is down below in the sources, and you see just how bad it was at Microsoft at that time and how much they really had to turn the whole ship around to get it to work. But hey, credit to Phil Spencer. I guess he managed to turn the Xbox brand around somewhat when it comes to generating money. And now he'll get to launch his own series of systems, I guess, next year. And we'll see how all of that goes. Next up, let's talk about Fallout 76. And once again, it's back in the news for what sounds like incompetence on Bethesda's part, but I guess I'm not 100% sure on this one. It does sound pretty bad for Bethesda, though, as there are people now taking to the own Fallout 76 subreddit, calling for the servers to be shut down for now because their loot is actually at risk currently, as people are just having their stuff stolen by hackers. Hackers have now apparently figured out an exploit that allows them to go around and rip stuff out of your inventory. And at first, people weren't 100% sure. They thought they were making it up, and then several videos started to emerge of actual proof of this happening, with someone stealing items from over 500 people in a public server. And it comes back again to Bethesda at this point. I mean, people are posting so much on that subreddit to have things just shut down because they're worried about their loot being stolen. I mean, think about that for a second. People are just calling for the game to be turned off for now because they don't want their stuff to be taken. Like, that is like next level stuff right there if you think about it. Don't let us play the game. We don't want our stuff stolen in a virtual world that you've created that apparently you can't keep people from stealing in. It's Fallout 76 again, I guess. Is it even funny anymore? I'm not sure, because it feels sad. Doesn't it? This is Bethesda. Rewind 2 years ago, Bethesda was like the company that a lot of people really loved, and now we're talking about Fallout 76, and people are asking them to shut it down so they don't have their stuff stolen. Anyway, Bethesda is asking anyone who encounters this to screenshot, record, do whatever you can, and submit a ticket, whatever that's going to do for them, I guess, and they can figure it out from there. It's just amazing to me how, I guess, the way they built this game is so archaic when it comes to their security and glitches and bugs that it's like, maybe it really is time for a new engine at this point and just a new setup, because it didn't seem like they were ready to go with this whole online idea with Fallout 76. It's been apparent since day one, but it keeps showing up. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Witcher 3 and The Witcher on Netflix. Of course, series came out and people seem to really, really like it. I've seen others around me talk about how much they enjoy it, whether it's Evan or Max and others. And What's interesting about this is it seems like it's pushing people back to The Witcher 3 on Steam. We can track it on Steam. There's a chance that it's also taken off on other platforms as well for concurrent player count, because it's on everything, right? It's on the Xbox One, it's on the PS4, it's on the Switch. There could be people playing Witcher 3 on the Switch while they're watching The Witcher on Netflix, right? It's pretty cool to hear about that, but that is a possibility. So now we see it on Steam actually jump up to about 48,000 concurrent players at any given time, and you can see the chart does kind of track upwards, and according to several places, this is the highest it's been since 2016. Since the game came out. And it actually kind of shows how valuable it can be if you can put out a series that is, good, or that at least fans enjoy, because it makes them remember, though, I guess the old days, a couple years ago, right? There's a good chance those could be people who maybe played and beat it when it first came out. Now they're seeing the series on Netflix and they're like, oh yeah, I remember that game. Maybe I'll go back and check it out. Or maybe when the DLC came out and they're going back to it now. But it's something maybe more and more publishers, developers should look at as being a means of good advertisement. There's also a chance this is the first time some of those people at all have seen The Witcher and they're like, oh, there's a game for that. I'll go check it out. I mean, it sounds crazy to some of us because we're in the games and we're the ones who are like, oh, cool, a Netflix special for The Witcher. But there could be people who are like, oh, what's The Witcher? Oh, let me check this out. Oh, there's a game. Oh, cool, The Witcher 3. I'll go check that out. It's very possible, and it's interesting to think about it that way, but maybe we'll get more and more adaptations, hopefully that are good, by the way, from video games, because so far, you know what? We had the Castlevania series, we're on The Witcher now. Maybe we can get some more stuff. We heard we might see some Devil May Cry stuff, right? There could be some interesting stuff. Hopefully it's good. If we get stuff that's bad, it's probably not going to help the game out much, but good stuff like this seems to help games too. And we'll finish up the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This one is from Spees saying, Ubisoft's canceled game, Beyond Good and Evil 2. You know what? Beyond Good and Evil 2 has kind of disappeared since it was shown off at E3 a couple of years ago. And I'm starting to wonder if that is a PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X game, or if it's just going to come out in 2021 as a cross-gen game, or if it's just going to be on the Xbox One or the PS4. Because keep in mind, they haven't announced any consoles yet that I know of. I haven't seen it. I'm sure it'll be on PC because they're designing for it seems. And of course, Ubisoft seems to like to push their own launcher and all of that. But I haven't seen anything else about this game. It's disappeared. I don't think it's canceled. I just think they showed it way too early and that it probably is a game for next generation, especially if it's not at E3 at all in 2020. Even if it is, would they really be able to show it at E3 2020 and then launch it like 4 months later when the new consoles are coming out? When they don't really care then? It's so tough. I think I'd rather them design it for the next gen platforms, hold it off another year or two to put more work into it, and then release it, take advantage of the more powerful systems anyway for their vision, and hopefully make a better game that way. But it has gone radio silent. I'd like to think it's because they're working on it really, really hard right now. There's also a chance that there's some problems in the background, so we'll have to wait and see. Maybe at E3 next year. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it here for Newswave. Enjoyed this video, guys. Hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Macronix seemingly figuring out the 64 gigabyte and up cartridges for the Switch going forward in 2020. Do you think Nintendo has a game already planned out to put on it, or do you think they're just trying to future-proof what they're going to be putting games on going forward for their hybrid systems? Also, what do you think about Phil Spencer and the way he was talking about Microsoft back when the Xbox One came out? And what about Fallout 76? It seems like Fallout 76, doesn't it? Thanks, guys, for watching. Have a great holiday tomorrow, and I'll see you back here Thursday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern Time for Newswave.